Good morning, friends. Welcome to the lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have seen that all norms on finite dimensional spaces defined are equivalent. That is, whatever is the nature of norm, if it is defined on the finite dimensional non-linear space, those are equivalent. To prove this result, in the last lecture, we have seen in detail that we have defined one norm called as the zeroth norm, and that zeroth norm was actually taken to be the maximum scalar used in representing the given vector in terms of the linear combination. While representing any vector in terms of linear combination of basis elements with the scalars, whichever is the scalar, which is the scalar which is maximum, will be taken as the zeroth norm, and easily one can prove that the zeroth norm is the norm. And by taking an arbitrary norm defined on the linear space, we have proved with the help of inequality that inequality we have seen in the last lecture, m norm 1 of x less than or equals to norm 2 of x less than or equals to capital M into norm 1 of x. We have tried to prove this with the help of this inequality. Now in today's lecture, we will go on one corollary defined on the theorem and some important result as well. Therefore, in today's lecture, let me write the corollary dependent on the theorem. Before that, let me write the statement of the theorem. Just wait a minute. Okay. Now here I am writing the theorem statement. All norms defined on finite dimensional non-linear space are equivalent. It was quite interesting proof we have completed in the last lecture. Now let us go for the corollary for in today's lecture. The corollary statement is, rather it's a first corollary. The corollary statement is, if n is finite dimensional, if n is a finite dimensional non-linear space, then n is complete. No doubt, as it is a corollary of our main theorem, we have to use this statement. All norms are equivalent, right? Now, in order to prove that the finite dimensional non-linear space is a complete, what we have to start with? We have to start with a Cauchy sequence, and we will prove that the Cauchy sequence is convergent. But while proving the convergence of the Cauchy sequence selected, then we should prove this with respect to an arbitrary norm. But in the last lecture itself, we have seen that if x is an element of a vector, x is an element of a linear space n, and if suppose x1, x2, xn are the basis elements, then any vector can be written as the linear combination alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, so on up to alpha n xn, right? With these fixed scalars. Then we have defined norm 0 on this vector x as maximum over I into mod of alpha I, right? This is the zeroth norm we have defined. And after defining the zeroth norm, in the theorem itself, we have proved that this zeroth norm defined is equivalent to any arbitrary norm defined. Therefore, while proving the completeness property, or while starting with a Cauchy sequence proving that it is convergent, we will prove the Cauchy sequence is Cauchy and convergence with respect to norm 0. And also we have seen in the concept of equivalent norms, if any sequence which is Cauchy with respect to one norm, then it will be Cauchy with respect to its equivalent norm. Similarly, if a sequence is convergent with respect to one norm, then it is convergent with respect to the norm equivalent to it, right? Therefore, if I start with proving a completeness property with respect to norm 0, then it is equally true for with respect to norm, arbitrary norm as well, right? Therefore, this is the norm, zeroth norm we have defined, and x be any arbitrary vector. Let me write here again. Alpha I, I is running from 1 to n. Okay, now let us start with a Cauchy sequence yn in n. Cauchy sequence yn in n. Then let me write the ith term of the sequence. As the sequence is in n is a nonlinear space of dimension n as we have assumed. Therefore, any yi can be written as ith term of a sequence. We will write the scalars used by giving a symbol alpha 1 I, ei. Here we will use the standard basis, right? Alpha 1 ei, alpha 2 I into, oh sorry, here it is E1, here it is E2. So on, this is alpha ni into En. Alpha ni into En. Right? Then these are some uniquely determined scalar used to construct the ith element of this Cauchy sequence. Now, as the sequence is Cauchy, what can I write? That norm yn minus ym, norm 0, right? Norm 0, yn minus yn tends to 0 as mn tends to infinity. As mn tends to infinity. Right? Now let us use the definition of norm 0. Norm 0 is maximum among the scalars used to write this vector yn minus ym. Therefore, suppose I am writing this. For finding the ith element. What will be the ith scalar used here? The ith scalar used will be alpha I n for yn say, and for ym this is alpha I into m, right? Therefore these are the two scalar. Therefore in this vector, in a subtraction yn minus ym, the scalars will be alpha I n, alpha I m. Okay, and no doubt we are taking maximum over I. I am just using this definition. Okay, I am using just this definition. Therefore, this will tends to 0 as mn tends to infinity. Now look at this. Maximum of a non-negative term is tending to 0. Maximum value of a non-negative among the non-negative values is tending to 0. Therefore, may I say every term must be tending to 0. Therefore, can I write this as alpha in minus alpha im tends to 0 as mn tends to infinity, and this is for each I. This is true for each I, right? Now, since these alphas are the scalars, therefore either these alphas are belonging to set of real numbers or the complex numbers, right? But we know both the spaces are complete. Now, looking to this, may I say the sequence alpha I m tends to alpha I as m tends to infinity. Why? Because this gives me a sequence is Cauchy in either R or C, but both the spaces are complete. Therefore, the Cauchy sequence is convergent as m tends to infinity. Therefore, if I write y is equal to summation k from 1 to n alpha k e k, or summation I from 1 to n alpha I ei. Okay, then it is very clear that this y is an element of n, no doubt, and ym also tends to y by considering the ym also tends to y. Why it is? Because ym, here we will check again, ym is a vector we have written, ym is a vector we have written as alpha 1 m e1, alpha 2 m e2, and so on up to alpha n m into en. This sequence is converging to alpha 1. This sequence is converging to alpha 2. Similarly, this sequence is converging to alpha 1. Therefore, by the addition, here this scalar was multiplied by a vector E1, this scalar is sequence will be multiplied by a fixed scalar E2. This sequence will be multiplied by the fixed vector En. And then according to the according to the convergence of addition and scalar multiplication of the sequences, we can say that this ym will converge to this, and we are calling this as y. Okay, it's like a coordinate wise convergence, right? Therefore, the sequence ym tends to y with respect to norm 0, because we have seen everything with respect to 0. Therefore, may I say the set finite dimensional non-linear space is complete with respect to norm 0, but norm 0 is equivalent to any arbitrary norm. Therefore, one can say that n is complete with respect to any arbitrary norm. Okay, this is very quite interesting result, that if n is a finite dimensional non-linear space, this is complete, means no need to prove the completeness property separately if the underlying set is a finite dimensional normed linear space. This is what important corollary we have seen just now. Now let us go for the second corollary to prove. In the second corollary, we have a statement: if n is a non-linear space, if n is a non-linear space and capital M is any finite dimensional subspace. See, actually the main theorem depends on finite dimensional spaces. Therefore, in the corollary, the properties or the characteristics are related to the finite dimensional spaces or subspaces. Therefore, here M is finite dimensional subspace of capital N. Then we should prove that M is closed. We should prove that M is closed. Okay. Now, to prove this result, we will make use of main theorem and the previous corollary use. What we have proved in the previous corollary: if n is a finite dimensional non-linear space, then it is complete. Right? Then it is complete. Right? If n is finite dimensional space implies that it is complete. Then here M is any finite dimensional subspace. M is taken as finite dimensional subspace. Then here M is complete. Here M is complete. M is complete. Therefore, now this is a complete subspace of a non-linear space. M is, let me write clear, M is complete subspace. M is complete subspace of normed linear space. Now already we have seen one theorem that complete subspace of a non-linear space is always closed. Therefore, here the subspace M is closed. Here the subspace M is closed. Okay. Now let us go to one more important theorem. Now the theorem we will prove is, let me write the statement: if n is finite dimensional, n is finite dimensional normed linear space and n dash is an arbitrary normed linear space, then every linear transformation T of n into n dash is continuous. Okay, see what a quite interesting result we have. T is a transformation given from n to n dash. This n is finite dimensional. N is finite dimensional and this is arbitrary. Arbitrary means it may be finite dimensional or infinite dimensional. There is no restriction on the codomain. It may be finite dimensional or it may be infinite dimensional as well. And it is given that this is linear. These many things are given to us. Then what is the aim to prove? What we want to prove in this? T is continuous. T is continuous. Okay. Now, as n is given to be a finite dimensional non-linear spaces, let me write the basis as some x1 to xn, assuming the dimension is some small n. Right? This will be a basis. Okay. If it is a basis, any arbitrary vector x in n is uniquely written with the help of a scalars, say alpha 1 to alpha n, as x is equal to summation alpha I xi, I running from 1 to n. I is running from 1 to n. Now our aim is to prove that this t is continuous. To prove that t is continuous, actually we have t is linear. Therefore, it may be sufficient to prove that this is bounded. Now let us try to prove boundedness. Let me take t image on both the sides. If I take t image on both the sides, this is t of summation alpha I xi. As t is linear, t image of a summation is summation of their corresponding t images. Therefore, this can be written as summation t of alpha I xi. Similarly, as t is linear, this scalar can be taken out. Therefore, this is alpha I into t of xi. The reason here is the mapping t is linear. The mapping t is linear. Okay. If the mapping is linear, now we will take norm on both the sides, because actually as we are thinking to prove that the mapping t is bounded, what kind of inequality one should prove? Norm t of x is less than or equals to some constant into norm of x. This is what I aim to prove. Therefore, let me take norm on both the sides. Norm of t of x is norm of summation alpha I into t of xi. Okay. Now let us use the triangular inequality of the norm spaces. What triangular inequality says? That if we have norm of a summation, then it is less equal by summation of the respective norms, right? Therefore, here also this is norm of a summation. We will write this is less equal by summation of the corresponding norms. Therefore, this is summation norm of alpha I into t of xi, right? Now let us use the fourth property of norm, taking this scalar out with the modulus. Therefore, this is mod of alpha I into norm of t of xi. Mod alpha I into norm of t of xi. Okay. Now here what we will do, let me expand this. This is alpha 1 into norm of t of x1 plus alpha 2 norm of t of x2. Sorry, here it is in the modulus. Okay, and let me continue this mod alpha n into norm of t of xn, right? Now what I will do, every scalar used among these alpha n's, let us say that any one scalar is maximum. We will replace every one scalar, say alpha p be the maximum one. Therefore, alpha 1 will be less equal by alpha p, right? This same concepts we have used in the previous theorems as well, replacing the scalars with its maximum, right? This is norm t of x2, right? Therefore, this is mod alpha p into norm of t of xn. What we are saying? Mod alpha p is maximum among all mod of alpha i's, where maximum is running over I. Therefore, we have replaced this. Now take mod alpha p common and look at the terms in a bracket. What we have in a bracket? Norm t of x1 plus norm t of x2 and so on till norm t of xn. Right? Therefore, this we have obtained is mod alpha p into summation norm t of xi. Right? And this is nothing but maximum mod alpha I over I into this summation norm t of xi as it is. But what we know, maximum mod alpha I is nothing but the zeroth norm of a corresponding vector. And here as the vectors, as x1 to xn are the basis vectors are fixed. Therefore, their t images are fixed and their norm values are also fixed. Therefore, this summation norm of t of xi is giving us a fixed scalar. Let me denote it with some m. Therefore, m we are selecting summation norm of T of xi, right? Therefore, what we have obtained, norm of T of x is less equal by some constant into norm 0 of x. Therefore, may I say the mapping T is bounded with respect to norm 0. Mapping T is bounded with respect to norm 0, but already we have seen that all norms on finite dimensional spaces are equivalent. On finite dimensional space are equivalent. Hence, norm 0 is equivalent to any arbitrary norm. Therefore, the mapping T is bounded with respect to an arbitrary norm. If it is bounded with respect to arbitrary norm, as well as the mapping is given to be linear, therefore one can easily say that the mapping T is continuous on n. This is an important and interesting property we have obtained, that if n is a mapping from n to n dash which is linear, provided the domain is finite dimensional, then the mapping is continuous. The mapping is continuous. This is very important result we have proved in today's lecture. I hope you have understood today's lecture. If any difficulties, you please contact me. Thank you for watching today's lecture.